War of the Worlds Retelling Chapter 17. If the Martians only wanted to destroy things, they could have killed everyone in London on Monday as they slowly spread out through the surrounding areas. Many people were fleeing in all directions, not just towards Barnet, but also towards Edgware, Waltham Abbey, Southend, Shoeburyness, Deal and Broadstairs. If you were watching from above in a balloon on that June morning, you would have seen the roads heading north and east out of London dotted black with people running for their lives. This was the largest group of people ever seen suffering together in history, much larger than any legendary army. It was not an organized march, but a stampede of 6 million unarmed and unprepared people, with no order and no destination. This was the beginning of the end of civilization and the killing of humanity. If the balloonists looked down, they would see the streets, houses, churches, squares, and gardens spread out like a big map. Everything looked deserted and abandoned. In the southern part of the map, there were big black spots that looked like someone had spilled ink all over the place. These black spots kept growing and spreading, moving in different directions and climbing up hills before spilling into valleys, just like how ink would spread out on paper. The places that were affected included Ealing, Richmond, and Wimbledon. Far away over the blue hills, the shiny Martians were moving around, spreading their poison cloud over the land in a calm and organized way. They were taking over wherever they went and destroying anything that tried to stop them. They blew up powder stores, cut telegraph wires, and ruined train tracks. They were making it hard for people to live. They didn't seem to be in a hurry to move past the central part of London. Maybe some people in London stayed in their houses on Monday morning, but many people died because of the black smoke. The Martians didn't want to kill everyone, they just wanted to scare them and destroy their things. Around midday, something remarkable happened at the Pool of London. It was filled with steamboats and various ships that were offered large sums of money by people fleeing the danger. Some of these people tried to climb onto the boats, but the crew used their boathooks to push them away, causing many to drown in the water. Then, at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the black vapor cloud started to thin out and drift away from the area around Blackfriars Bridge. This caused a lot of chaos and panic at the pool, with people fighting and colliding with one another. Many boats and barges got jammed in the northern arch of the Tower Bridge, and the sailors and workers on board had to fiercely fight off the people who were swarming towards them from the riverfront. Some people even climbed down the piers of the bridge from above in their desperation to escape. An hour later, a Martian showed up beyond the clock tower and walked through the river. There was only wreckage floating above Limehouse. I have to tell you about the 5th cylinder falling. The 6th star fell in Wimbledon. My brother and I were with a group of people who wanted to cross the sea. We traveled through a crowded country towards Colchester on Tuesday. We heard that the Martians had taken over all of London. They were seen at Highgate and Neaston too, but we didn't see them until the next day. That day, people started to realize they needed food urgently. As they got hungrier, they didn't care about property rights anymore. Farmers were using weapons to protect their animals and crops. Some people, like my brother, were heading east to get food. Others were even going back towards London. These were mostly people from the northern suburbs who only knew about the black smoke from rumors. My brother heard that many government officials were in Birmingham and preparing a lot of explosives for automatic mines in the Midland counties. Someone told me that the Midland Railway Company had started running trains from St. Albans to relieve the traffic jams caused by the panic. They also announced in Chipping Ongar that they had large stores of flour available in the northern towns and would distribute bread to the starving people within 24 hours. Even though I heard this news, I didn't change my plan to escape. My 2 companions and I continued to head eastward all day, and we didn't hear any more about the bread distribution other than the promise. As it turned out, no one else heard any more about it either. That night, the 7th star fell on Primrose Hill, while Miss Elphinstone was watching, taking turns with my brother. She saw it too. On Wednesday, we finally arrived in Chelmsford after spending the night in a field of unripe wheat. Once there, a group of people calling themselves the Committee of Public Supply took our pony for food and promised to give us a share of it the next day. We heard rumors that there were Martians in Epping and that Waltham Abbey powder mills had been destroyed while trying to blow up one of the invaders. People were watching for Martians from the church towers in Chelmsford. Despite being very hungry, my brother decided it would be best to continue towards the coast rather than wait for food. Around midday, we reached Tillingham, which was strangely silent and deserted, with only a few people looking for food. It was there that we caught our first glimpse of the sea and an incredible crowd of ships of all kinds. After the sailors couldn't go up the Thames anymore, they came to the Essex coast to rescue people. My brother and I could see them in a huge curve along the coast that vanished into the mist towards the Naze. We saw fishing boats from England, Scotland, France, Holland, and Sweden, as well as steam launches from the Thames, yachts, electric boats, and big ships like colliers and merchantmen. We could even see white liners from Southampton and Hamburg. There were also many boats close to the beach, all trying to trade with the people there. About 2 miles away, we saw an ironclad ship called the Thunder Child. It was the only warship we could see, but far away to the right, we saw a line of black smoke marking the next ironclads of the Channel Fleet. They were ready for action, but powerless to stop the Martian conquest. When we finally saw the sea, my brother and I were excited, but my sister-in-law, Mrs. Elphinstone, was terrified. She had never left England before and was scared of being in a foreign country without any friends. She even thought that the French and the Martians might be alike. She had been getting more and more anxious during our 2-day journey. She kept insisting on going back to Stanmore, where things had always been safe. She believed we would find her son George there. It was hard to convince her to come down to the beach. My brother managed to get the attention of some men on a paddle steamer from the Thames, and they sent a boat to take us. We had to pay them £36 for the 3 of us. The men said that the steamer was going to Ostend. At around 2 o'clock, we paid our fares and boarded the steamboat with the 3 of us. We were able to find food on board, although it was very expensive. We ate a meal together on one of the seats at the front. There were already many passengers on board, some who had spent all their money to get a spot on the boat. The captain waited near the Blackwater until 5 in the afternoon, gathering more passengers until the seats were dangerously crowded. He might have waited even longer, but at around that time, we heard gunshots coming from the south. In response, the ironclad ship in the distance fired a small gun and raised a string of flags. Smoke came out of the ship's funnels. Some of the passengers thought the firing came from shoeburyness, but then they realized it was getting louder. At the same time, 3 ironclads emerged from the sea in the southeast, with black smoke surrounding them. But my attention was focused on the distant firing in the south. I thought I saw a column of smoke rising from the haze. As we sailed eastward on the little steamer, the coast of Essex grew hazier and the ships in the distance looked like a big crescent. Suddenly, a Martian appeared in the distance, walking along the muddy coast towards us. The captain on the bridge was terrified and cursed out loud, urging the paddles to go faster. Everyone on board rushed to the side of the steamer to see the towering Martian walking towards us, slowly and mockingly human-like. It was the first Martian I had ever seen, and I watched in amazement rather than fear as it walked towards the ships in the distance, with 2 more Martians appearing even further away. They were all headed towards the sea, seemingly trying to block the escape of the ships that were clustered between Foulness and the Naze. Despite the paddles working hard, the little steamboat moved away from the advancing Martians at a frighteningly slow pace. I looked towards the northwest and saw a large group of ships moving in a frenzy. They were passing behind each other, changing direction, and blowing their whistles loudly. Meanwhile, a danger was creeping closer from the left. It was all so captivating that I didn't pay attention to what was happening in the sea. Suddenly, the steamboat made a sharp turn to avoid colliding with another ship. I lost my balance and fell off my seat. Everyone was shouting, running around, and cheering loudly. The steamboat was rocking back and forth, and I struggled to get back on my feet. When I finally stood up, I saw a massive iron object, like a plow's blade, cutting through the water towards us. It was less than 100 yards away, and the waves of foam created by its wake were tossing the steamboat around. The object was so big that it seemed to suck the deck of the steamer down almost to the water's edge. My brother got sprayed with water, which made him temporarily unable to see. When his vision cleared, he saw a big scary monster heading towards the shore. The monster had tall metal parts sticking out of its top and it was shooting fire from 2 pipes. This monster was called the Thunder Child, and it was rushing to help the other ships in danger. My brother held onto the side of the ship as it rocked back and forth. He looked past the Thunder Child and saw the Martians standing together in the water. They were so far out that their 3 long legs were mostly underwater. From far away, they didn't seem as scary as the huge metal monster that the Thunder Child was following. The Martians looked surprised to see the Thunder Child. They might have thought that the giant ship was like them. The Thunder Child didn't shoot any guns. It just charged straight at the Martians. Maybe the reason it got so close to the Martians was that it didn't shoot any guns. The Martians didn't know what to do because they had never seen anything like the Thunder Child before. They could have easily destroyed the ship with their heat ray, but they hesitated. The ship was moving really fast and making a lot of steam. It looked like it was almost halfway between another boat and some Martians. Then, one of the Martians pointed a tube at the ship and shot out some black gas. It hit the side of the ship but didn't do much damage. From far away, it looked like the ship was already close to the Martians. The people on the ship could see the Martians rising out of the water, and one of them pointed a camera-like device at the ship. When the device touched the water, it made a big cloud of steam. It was so hot that it burned a hole through the side of the ship. Then, a spark started a fire on the Martian and it fell over. A lot of water and steam shot up in the air. The Thunder Child ship's guns fired and made a lot of noise. One of the shots even hit another ship and destroyed it. No one really listened to the warning, and when the Martian fell down, the captain on the boat's front yelled loudly. Everyone on the back of the boat shouted too, and then they yelled again. Suddenly, something long and black with fire coming out of it appeared from behind the chaos. The boat was still working and moving, so it went straight towards another Martian, getting very close. But then, the heat ray hit the boat and there was a big explosion that made the boat's decks and funnels jump up. The Martian was hurt by the explosion, and then the burning boat crashed into it like it was made of cardboard. I yelled without meaning to, and a lot of steam filled the air again. The captain yelled too. I heard as I looked around. Everyone was screaming and cheering loudly. The boat was filled with people, all of whom were excitedly looking out at the other ships and boats moving out to sea. For a long time, we couldn't see anything through the steam that was covering the water. We kept moving away from the fight. And when the steam finally cleared, we couldn't see the Thunder Child or the third Martian anymore because of the dark smoke. However, I could see that the big iron ships in the sea were getting closer and were heading towards the shore. The small boat kept going towards the sea, while the big iron ships slowly moved towards the coast, which I couldn't see because of the steam and dark gas mixing together. There were lots of boats going in different directions, some of them even sailing between the big iron ships and our boat. Eventually, before the dark cloud of steam got too close, the warships changed direction and headed north. Then, suddenly, they turned around and went towards the south into the thick, hazy evening. The coast started to get blurry and then disappeared as the sun went down and dark clouds covered the sky. All of a sudden, while we were watching the beautiful sunset, we heard the loud sound of guns and saw some dark shadows moving. We all hurried to the side of the boat and tried to see what was happening, but it was difficult because there was a lot of smoke covering the sun. The boat kept moving slowly, and we were all feeling very anxious. As the sun went down, the sky started to change colors, and we could see the evening star. It was getting dark when the captain suddenly shouted and pointed to something in the sky. My brother and I strained our eyes to see what it was. We saw a big, flat object rise up quickly out of the gray clouds and move upwards towards the bright sky in the west. It made a huge curve and then slowly disappeared into the night sky. As it flew, it seemed to spread darkness over the land.